In 2003, after it became clear that there wasn't going to be a crossover movie with Michael Myers and Pinhead, two British writers, Jim Keeble and Duddy Appleton, were tasked with writing a script as a sequel to Halloween Resurrection. The script was titled Halloween Retribution. It would both serve as a sequel to Halloween Resurrection while also tying up loose ends from the end of Halloween H2O. There were a lot of burning questions after some things in Resurrection were not touched on whatsoever. Retribution was going to fix that. The script is available online, and I implore you guys to read it because it's honestly not a terrible script, aside from a few choice decisions that I wouldn't have made. The idea was that the film was going to pick up on Halloween night in 1964, and it was going to show us a scene with young Michael Myers. We'd see him interacting with a doctor, this doctor not being Dr. Loomis. So we'd get a little insight into his time in Smith's Grove. And this flashback sequence would culminate in the night that he broke out in 1978. See, he fashioned a shiv as a weapon, used it against the doctor to escape, and it would lead us to his escape in 1978 that we saw in the original Halloween. The film would then jump 25 years later, and we would be following none other than Freddie Harris, Busta Rhymes himself. See, Busta has written a book. He's going on this press tour, and he's basically talking about how he beat the crap out of Michael Myers and just kind of lying about a lot of the things that took place that night. Have no fear. No martial arts were coming. No rematch with Michael was coming. Freddy would get dispatched by Michael Myers relatively soon. And then John Tate would find his way back to Haddonfield, Illinois after more deaths started occurring and people believed that Michael Myers was on the loose again. That's right, John Tate, played by Josh Hartnett, Laurie Strode's son, that had no mention whatsoever in Halloween Resurrection. When John comes back to Haddonfield, he recruits the help of none other than Charles Cyphers, Lee Brackett. See, Brackett isn't the sheriff anymore, but he's still scorned from what happened to Annie 25 years prior, and there are multiple points throughout this script where he has like PTSD and breakdowns because of that. John and Lee Brackett were going to be on the hunt for Michael Myers. They were going to solve this mystery, so to speak. They were going to put this to bed finally. A big part of Brackett's storyline and arc here is that he feels guilty for what happened in 1978, and he's basically made it his mission to be the one to end this. There's a group of new teenagers in Haddonfield, because of course there has to be, and Michael Myers would eventually cross paths with them. But this is where the script gets kinda weird and makes you stretch believability a little bit. The idea was that it was going to be snowing on Halloween night in Haddonfield, Illinois. Now, you might hear that at face value and go, well, that's not that far-fetched, especially if you live in the Midwest. I myself have seen snow flurries on Halloween night here in Ohio, and I'm sure if you lived anywhere like Illinois, Michigan, other states like that, I'm sure you've seen it. But does it stick? I don't know, but I'm sure it's not unprecedented. The idea was that this new group of teens was going to be having this like Halloween party, but the snowstorm has caused them to find a new place to do it. Instead of this outdoor bonfire Halloween party, they find an abandoned building, and that's where we're going to do it, because there's a snowstorm. Well, that abandoned building happens to be Smith's Grove Sanitarium, the same Smith's Grove that Michael Myers was incarcerated in for 15 years. John Tate would find his way there with Sheriff Brackett, and all hell would break loose, culminating in a fight between Michael and John on a frozen lake outside of Smith's Grove Sanitarium, where John would kill him with an axe, grab his mask, almost as if to signify that he may be taking up the mantle, and the film would end. So there's a lot to dissect there. We're going to follow along with some of the survivors from Halloween Resurrection. I don't think many people would have been a big fan of that, but it is what it is. Although Michael would get his cinematic justice against Busta Rhymes. We're going to have John Tate come back into the fold, come back to Haddonfield and almost finish what his mom started. We'd have Sheriff Brackett involved again, trying to also redeem himself for what happened to his daughter 25 years ago. And we'd have a new group of teenagers, all amidst a snowstorm that forces them all into Smith's Grove Sanitarium. At face value, some of that sounds wild. Some of it kind of sounds stupid. But I think the general crux of this movie would have been really cool. Seeing John Tate and Sheriff Brackett team up together, they both have reasons for wanting to end Michael Myers. Very believable reasons. To see them get together and achieve that would have been really cool. To see John end Michael Myers himself after Michael killed his mother would have been really cool. This new group of teenagers, they were really just fodder. A lot of times in these Halloween movies, they are fodder. And again, like I said, the survivors of Resurrection that were going to come back in this movie were going to be killed. The idea of snow is kind of cool because we've never seen Michael Myers in the snow. And it's also cool because they wouldn't have been taking it out of Halloween night. It'd still be Halloween, but it'd be one of those rare weather events where there's a snowstorm a little early in the season. Which is, again, like I said, if you're not from the area, it stretches believability, but it is possible. All of that sounds decent enough to where I would have wanted to see that Halloween 9. Now, there were other ideas for Halloween 9 over the years. None of them really got scripts or really got much traction at all. This was the one that was probably most likely to be made. So why didn't it get made? That question gets asked a lot. Why didn't they move forward with Halloween Retribution? There's probably a few reasons for that. One, Halloween Resurrection was not a big hit, critically or commercially. Critics pretty much trashed it, the fan base pretty much didn't like it, and it barely broke even financially. So it wasn't really a movie that was begging for a sequel immediately. Two, unfortunately, Mustafa Akkad passed away in 2005 while this script was still the one targeted to be the future of the franchise. So it remains to be seen, had he lived, if this would have been the one they moved forward with. Though to that point, Malick apparently was not very interested in this idea or any sequel idea to Resurrection and wanted to kind of reinvigorate the franchise, which we would eventually get in 2007. Another big reason that's been speculated but has not been confirmed was getting Josh Hartnett back. Honestly, in my opinion, they wouldn't have had a snowball's chance in hell. Josh Hartnett's star was rising at the time, and now he's a household name. Everybody knows Josh Hartnett, whether it be Pearl Harbor or even most recently Oppenheimer. Everybody knows Josh Hartnett. So I highly doubt they would have gotten him back for a 9th Halloween movie with pretty much no other actor of cachet. But I think the general reason at the end of the day was just burnout. I think it was necessary that the Halloween franchise got a reinvigoration, and I think Malick was right in feeling that way. Whether you liked what Rob Zombie did or not, that's not really the point. The point is that making a sequel to a movie like Resurrection, where a lot of people didn't really like it and it didn't make money, there's almost no point in that. If you're bringing Michael Myers back, reintroduce him to a new generation in a new way. So I think the decision they made with making Rob Zombie's Halloween the next film was the right idea. Also, they were holding out hope that there was going to be a crossover with Michael Myers still. So they held out hope for that. All of these reasons culminated as to why Halloween Retribution never got made. But the question remains, what would the final product have looked like? Would you have wanted to see it? Would it have been a worthy sequel? There's a lot of reasons that make you think, yeah, I'd like to see that. Specifically John Tate returning and Lee Brackett. But aside from that, did it ever need to be made? Who's to say? But we got what we got, and Halloween Retribution never came to pass. Again, I implore you guys to read this script if you choose to do so, because it's online and it's actually not a terrible script. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you think about this story idea? Would you have liked to see it, or are you happy that it never got made? But because it never got made, we will still never have finality for Laurie Strode's son, John Tate.